Just a few years ago, when Mark Zuckerberg announced that Facebook would be rebranding to Meta,
Reflect who we are and what we hope to build. I am proud to announce that starting today, our company is now Meta.
it was clear that he genuinely believed that the Metaverse was the future of the internet, and he was ready to bet everything on that vision.
I believe the Metaverse is the next chapter for the internet, and it's the next chapter for our company too. From now on, we're going to be Metaverse first, not Facebook first.
Fast forward to today, however, and that bet has gone wrong in almost every way possible. Even after hiring more than 10,000 people to build the Metaverse and spending tens of billions of dollars to make this new digital world a reality, Metaverse can't convince even 1,000 people to actually use it, with almost no one interested in the Metaverse anymore. And with reports suggesting that even Zuck himself has quietly moved on from the project, it's fair to say that the grand promise of the Metaverse looks dead in 2025. But the reality is far more disturbing than what the numbers tell. Because behind the headlines and the financial losses, there are reports saying that the company has put users at risk just to protect its profits, and allegations that its virtual spaces have become a safe haven for predators and hateful content. So what was once promised as the future of connection could very possibly go down as one of the biggest tech failures of the 21st century. It's your boy Louaista, live from Louextras, and this is why Mark Zuckerberg abandoned the Metaverse. But to fully understand how everything fell apart, we need to look at how Meta got here in the first place. By now, most people know the origin story of Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg created the platform in 2004 with his college roommates at Harvard. At first, it was just for students, spreading campus to campus through word of mouth, before eventually releasing to the public in September 2006. And at the time, it felt completely different from the rest of the internet. Facebook was built around digitally connecting friends, family, and people you actually knew, and it was focused heavily on keeping users engaged and coming back. By 2007, it had already overtaken MySpace to become the largest social media platform in the world. And ever since, it has stayed right there at the top. By 2011, Facebook had crossed 1 billion active users. And as of 2025, that number has grown to over 3 billion. For context, that is more than 50% of the people using the internet all over the world. But Facebook didn't stay on top by being innovative. As new social media platforms started popping up in the early 2010s, Facebook began to feel the pressure. These newcomers were pulling users away, and for a company built entirely on attention, that was a serious threat. But instead of fighting for users the hard way, Facebook found the faster solution. It just bought the competition. In 2012, Facebook acquired Instagram for about $1 billion. Then, just 2 years later, it spent another $19 billion to buy WhatsApp in 2014. But there was a limit to how far this strategy could go. Some companies didn't want to be bought. Snapchat, for example, turned down Facebook's multi-billion-dollar acquisition offer. So when Facebook couldn't buy competitors, it started doing the next closest thing, which was copying them. Like when they introduced the Stories feature on both Facebook and Instagram, which looked almost identical to one of Snapchat's most popular features. And surprisingly, that worked. Stories quickly became one of the most used features across Facebook's platforms, while Snapchat gradually lost most of its cultural relevance over the years. Similarly, they borrowed the idea of Facebook Marketplace from Craigslist, Facebook Gaming from Twitch, and in 2023, went as far to launch Threads, which was practically a carbon copy of X, formerly Twitter. But even this playbook eventually stopped working. In September 2017, the Chinese company ByteDance launched a new social media app in the US called TikTok. And it was unlike anything Facebook had faced before. Instead of focusing on your friends, your family, and your social circle, TikTok prioritized content itself. Its algorithm learned your interests frighteningly fast and delivered a constant stream of short, entertaining videos according to your attention span. And that made it an instant hit. Within just a year of launching in the US, TikTok became the most downloaded app in the country in October 2018, and it only kept growing from there. It was downloaded 693 million times in 2019 alone. The next year, that number jumped to over 850 million. Leaks from internet meetings around that time made it pretty clear that TikTok's growth had Zuckerberg seriously worried. So yeah, TikTok is doing well. TikTok is doing quite well around the world. It's starting to do well in the US, especially with young folks. It's growing really quickly in India. I think it's past Instagram now in India in terms of scales. And just like before, Facebook tried to fight back by copying its competitor. So in August 2020, the company rolled out Instagram Reels. But this time, the strategy didn't really land. TikTok continued to dominate, especially among younger users, and Facebook slowly became the social media that your parents and grandparents use. And that was a major problem, because if Facebook wanted to continue to dominate, it needed to win back the attention. And that's where the metaverse comes in. The COVID pandemic set the entire world into lockdown in January 2020. With offices, schools, restaurants, and shopping malls suddenly closed, our social lives moved onto platforms like Zoom and Google Meet. At the same time, games like Fortnite were turning into massive virtual hangout spaces. Artists like J Balvin and Travis Scott were hosting concerts inside the game.
I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype.
And millions of people attended these events from their bedrooms. For Mark Zuckerberg, all of this indicated that the future of work, entertainment, and social interactions would be completely virtual, and he wanted to become the first to build that future. So on October 28, 2021, at the company's Connect conference, he announced that Facebook would be rebranding to Meta and shifting its entire focus towards creating what he called the next chapter of the internet. He described the metaverse as a virtual extension of real life, a place where you could work, socialize, learn, play, shop, or create.
I'm proud of what we've built so far and excited about what comes next as we move beyond what's possible today, beyond the constraints of screens, beyond the limits of distance and physics, and towards a future where everyone can be present with each other, create new opportunities, and experience new things.
And Meta already had a head start. The company had been selling VR headsets, the MetaQuest, for years. So if they built the digital universe, in addition to the devices people use to access it, they'd essentially monopolize what they believed would become the next era of the internet.
By the end of the decade, we hope to basically get to around 1 billion people in the metaverse doing hundreds of dollars of commerce each.
To turn this into a reality, he also announced an initial $10 billion investment into the company's VR division, Reality Labs. And as stupid as it may sound, at the time, people were genuinely excited. Interest in the metaverse exploded almost overnight. People were already talking about building careers, buying assets, and making real money inside the metaverse. Experts were predicting that the metaverse industry could soon cross $1 trillion in value. On top of that, Zuckerberg's announcement also created a massive hype around the blockchain and crypto-based metaverses that already existed. Crypto projects like Decentraland and the Sandbox received hundreds of millions of dollars in investments. People were spending tens of thousands of dollars buying NFTs and digital real estate in these virtual universes. Even major brands like Gucci, Louis Vuitton, and Nike started building their presence in this new virtual world. But moved past the hype and headlines, and a massive reality check was waiting around the corner. The problem with the metaverse craze was that there was simply no real-world use for any of it. People were buying digital land, NFTs, and virtual assets, but no one actually knew what to do with them. And once that became obvious, the hype came crashing down. Crypto-based metaverse platforms lost more than 90% of their value in just a year. Virtual real estate, for which people had paid tens of thousands of dollars, was suddenly worth only a fraction of that. And just like that, people stopped believing in the dream. Personally, I think the whole metaverse hype is like a big party where everyone is drunk, and the hangover is gonna hit pretty hard. Metaverses are fueled by hype right now. The gameplay is piss poor, and Minecraft is miles ahead of them. Now, to be clear, Meta never sold NFTs, crypto land, or any of the blockchain-based assets that crashed. But an average person didn't know the difference between Meta's metaverse and the crypto metaverses. So the public perception around this technology was destroyed completely. And when the hype died, it dragged Meta down with it. Meta's stock price fell more than 70% in the span of a year, and the company lost more than $700 billion in its valuation. To give you a little context, that is more than the total GDP of countries like Argentina, the UAE, and Belgium. And to make matters even worse, Meta's VR division, Reality Labs, lost more than $24 billion during this period. And even after burning through all that cash, Meta's virtual platform, Horizon Worlds, was struggling to survive. Internal documents of the company revealed that Horizon World had less than 200,000 monthly users by October 2022, which was far less than the 500,000 monthly users that they were targeting. On top of that, according to some reports, only 9% of the 10,000 separate worlds in this metaverse were ever visited by more than 50 users. And honestly, once you see what this metaverse actually was like, the failure makes complete sense. The first problem was simply the cost of getting in. To even access Meta's metaverse, you needed a VR headset. The entry-level model, the MetaQuest 2, cost around $499, and the upgraded Pro version, which was made for professionals, was priced at $1,499. For most people, the price alone was enough to stay out. Was going to get my first VR and made up my mind what to get, but man, it looks so daunting to even get started. Unlike traditional social media, where all you needed was a phone, plus if you wanted to run more demanding applications or play higher-end VR games, you needed a powerful PC to pair with the headset, adding several $100s more on top. And even after people invested in the hardware, many found that the games and experiences available were relatively expensive for what they offered. I bought a VR headset a couple of weeks ago, and now I'm just trying to find some good games to play. The problem is, all the games seem to cost so much. I wouldn't recommend buying a VR unless you're ready to keep spending for the games too. It feels like you can't really enjoy it without consistently dropping cash. But this cost was only a small part of a far more disappointing problem. When Meta first announced the Metaverse, people already had a mental picture of what a VR world should look like. Movies like Ready Player One had stretched expectations to the extreme.
Accept the oasis. A world where the limits of reality are your own imagination.
And even Meta's own promos promised a vibrant and immersive space that would be enough for work, play, and everything in between.
Hey, Mark. Hey, what's going on?
Hi, Mark.
What's up, Mark?
Whoa, we're floating in space?
But once Horizon Worlds actually launched, it didn't look anything like that. The experience felt empty, unfinished, and full of bugs.
Worse than a lot of PS2, the 15 billion or so.
And nothing captured the internet's reaction better than the comments under Zuckerberg's Facebook post announcing the launch with a selfie taken inside the metaverse. Imagine spending billions of dollars on some VR MMO, only for it to look worse than an MMO from the 90s, with virtually zero features. Billion-dollar company, and this is what y'all have been cooking up? Free apps on the App Store look better than this. The avatars had lifeless eyes, no expressions, and for a long time, no legs. It made everything feel more awkward than immersive. So it's no surprise that businesses weren't actually lining up to move their workflow into this new digital space. And on the entertainment side, it was an even bigger failure. Gamers were already used to video games like Fortnite and Minecraft with virtual worlds that were visually more appealing, ran more smoothly, and above all, were a whole lot more fun. Even sandbox games like Second Life, from 2 decades ago, looked and felt more real. Second Life, but worse. Millions invested in the avatars looked like Nintendo Wii characters from 15 years ago. But beneath the bad graphics and buggy softwares, there was something much more darker going on. Right around the time when Meta was shifting its focus to the metaverse, a former employee, Frances Haugen, came forward with some seriously disturbing accusations about the company's operations. She claimed that Meta had been lying about its efforts to remove harmful content from its platforms, and it was simply because they prioritized profits. I've seen a bunch of social networks, and it was substantially worse at Facebook than anything I'd seen before. She leaked internal documents showing that Meta knew its platforms were fueling hate and real-world violence, but according to her, fixing that problem would have meant changing the platform's algorithms, and that would mean fewer clicks, less time spent on the app, and ultimately, less ad revenue. These allegations painted a picture of an evil corporation that had no concern for the safety of its users and threatened to destroy the company's reputation. Zuckerberg denied all these accusations. The argument that we deliberately push content that makes people angry for profit is deeply illogical. We make money from ads, and advertisers consistently tell us they don't want their ads next to harmful or angry content. The morale, business, and product incentives all point in the opposite direction. But this statement, coming from a company with a long track record of mishandling user trust, felt hypocritical. After all, this wasn't Meta's first controversy. Meta had been legally fighting against the FTC for years over the charges of misleading users about how their data was being used. That case eventually ended with Meta paying a record-breaking $5 billion penalty. And not long after that, the Cambridge Analytica scandal revealed that the company had also been illegally sharing user data with third parties. And if all this wasn't disturbing enough, Haugen also claimed that Meta was deliberately harming its younger users. Studies found that 13.5% of teen girls said Instagram made thoughts of suicide worse, and another 17% said that it made their eating disorders worse. As Facebook's own research says, as these young women begin to consume this eating disorder content, they get more and more depressed, and it actually makes them use the app more. And these concerns only got more serious when the attorneys general of 33 different US states filed a lawsuit against the company, accusing it of violating children's online privacy laws.
Your own study says that you make life worse for 1 in 3 teenage girls. You increase
Senator, that's not
anxiety
what it
and
says.
depression. That's what it says, and you're here testifying to us in public.
Naturally, after years of seeing this company dodge responsibility, mishandle data, and ignore safety concerns, the internet had completely churned against Meta. So when the Metaverse project started falling apart, a large number of people were celebrating it. If Facebook loses, everyone wins. I absolutely love the Metaverse because it cost them a lot of money while making no money back and destroying their reputation amongst investors. Because knowing the company's history of exploiting its users' trust, people were not comfortable giving it any more of their personal data, especially now that its VR headsets were strapped to their faces, collecting everything from facial expressions to environmental data. But problems inside the Metaverse were about to get even more unsettling. The thing is, the Metaverse is a completely different kind of online environment. Instead of typing comments or sending messages through screens, people interact with each other in real time in 3D spaces. And that means that enforcing rules and moderating behavior would be far more complex than anything Meta had ever dealt with before. And unsurprisingly, they were not prepared for it. For example, a team of reviewers at BuzzFeed created a private Horizon world filled with hate speech and conspiracy theories.
It's a globalist coup. It has been coordinated by communist China big tech, and now Lord Biden, the communist pedophile Chicom agent, wants to bury your ballots, delay the results of the election, knowing that Donald Trump wins. Infowars.com.
But Meta's moderation team didn't deflect or act on it until the BuzzFeed team reported it themselves. This experiment was just another example of Meta's inability to protect its viewers against harmful content. Yet soon, it would lead to very real consequences for people using this technology. A few months later, another user reported experiencing verbal and sexual harassment within 60 seconds of joining the platform. Within 60 seconds of joining, I was verbally and sexually harassed. 3 to 4 male avatars with male voices, essentially, but virtually gang to my avatar and took photos. And as troubling as these stories were, the underlying issues soon led to a far more alarming situation. You see, Horizon Worlds was never meant to be a platform for children. In fact, underage users weren't supposed to be there at all. But like so many of Meta's other policies, this rule was poorly enforced. And within months, the virtual world was flooded with kids, many of them who were under the age of 10. And that raised some serious questions. Because if Meta couldn't protect adults in its virtual world, what chance did it have of keeping children safe in the same environment? So after everything, from failing to deliver on its vision to constantly putting users at risk, the narrative around the Metaverse kept spiraling downward. Meta was struggling to hold on to the trust of its users, and more importantly, the confidence of its investors. But probably the final blow to that vision came in November 2022, when OpenAI released ChatGPT. And within days, it exploded across the internet, hitting 1 million users in 5 days, and 100 million in just 2 months, eventually becoming the fastest growing platform in the history of the internet. Naturally, it shifted the entire conversation in the tech world.
AI has the potential, particularly generative AI, to generate trillions of dollars of economic value.
Suddenly, it was all about AI. Investors were pouring large amounts of money into AI startups, and companies were rushing to put all of their resources into making the next big AI product. By early 2023, big companies like Microsoft, Snapchat, and Disney had already closed down their Metaverse divisions to focus on developing artificial intelligence. But for Meta, a company that had just spent the last year betting its entire future on virtual reality, this shift wasn't going to be so easy. Even as Meta entered the AI race, Reality Labs continued burning through billions of dollars in operating losses. Over time, the company started quietly rebalancing, putting more money, talent, and attention towards building AI tools, as well as large language models and compute infrastructure. And at Meta's most recent earnings call on October 30th, 2025, Mark Zuckerberg didn't mention the word Metaverse even once. Just a few weeks later, the company re-signed its top Metaverse executive to lead the AI efforts. But to be fair, the story isn't a complete failure across the board. Despite the massive losses and shifting priorities, Meta hasn't fully walked away from its Metaverse ambitions. In fact, the company continues to invest billions of dollars into this vision. And even after companies like AI, Samsung, and Sony launched their own VR headsets, Meta continues to hold over 60% of the VR headset market.
Meta's Oculus headsets are the top-selling virtual reality headsets in the world, capturing 60% of the VR headset marketplace. Still, that's holding space in a seemingly declining market, as US sales of all VR and AR headsets dropped 40% in 2023 compared to the year prior. Meta did not respond to CNBC's request for comment.
Not only that, but their latest release, the Ray-Ban smart glasses, have actually been a massive success. Demand has been strong, and the feedback from both consumers and tech reviewers has been surprisingly positive.
Seeing how fast these improved really actually, for the first time in a while, got me thinking about if it could bring us closer to a post-smartphone world.
So while the metaverse may have slipped out of the spotlight, Meta isn't done yet. With developers consistently improving the software and their recent products gaining real traction, there's a chance that in a few years, the company might pull things closer to the original vision. It might not completely reinvent the internet like Zuck once promised, but it could still shape how we experience content and interact with others online. But as exciting as it sounds, one question still hangs in the air. Can a company that's betrayed its users so many times be trusted with building that future?